As we were saying at the top, not everybody is against tariffs. Many economists argue that if you wield them consistently and strategically, they can both protect American business and promote manufacturing here at home, which is exactly what my next guest wants, specifically on steel from Canada, something President Trump is doing with the 25% levy on what they make up there. Joining us now, President of Capone Iron Corporation of Rowley, Massachusetts, Stephen Capone. Really good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. This is great.
Explain what it's going to mean for your company to have these tariffs on Canadian steel.
As far as being a steel fabricator here located in New England, we're really subject to Canadian competition. Canadian competition has long dominated our industry. It's put many businesses, generational family businesses, out of business over the past 30 years. So we're hoping that this levels the playing field for us.
Is 25% enough?
Well, it's a start. Let's see if that slows them down. But the 25% will at least stop the Canadians from importing cheap foreign steel, fabricating it, and shipping it down to the New England states.
Give me your argument for why American steel is better, even when it is expensive. I know you've made this argument about building locally and how contracts for state buildings and whatnot end up going to Canadian steel instead of American steel, and how that ends up just hurting everybody. Explain.
Well, there's a couple of things in play. First of all, supply chain issues. If you remember what happened during COVID, there were supply chain issues. And you think about the owner of New England Patriots. He had to send his planes to China to get N95 masks that weren't produced or produced in sufficient quantities here in the States. We won't suffer supply chain issues. That's number one. Number two, there's an economic multiplier that comes into play here. And it's very important to keep American industry vital. Structural steel is a vital industry to the United States.
What do you say to those who worry that manufacturing can't be done fast enough here? You can't scale it quickly enough to meet the needs of the moment, and that what's going to end up happening is there's going to be a downturn?
That is not true. There's plenty of capacity at the mills here in the United States, and there's plenty of capacity with the fabricators in the United States. Their plants in Canada and our plants here in the States are at par. Their machinery is the same as our machinery. Their workers are no better than our workers. Their technology, no better than ours. The only thing I could say is, and it's a campaign I've been working on for over 30 years, it's on public construction. Steel projects for public buildings funded by our tax-paying dollars are benefiting Canadians. They control 95% of the public construction market at the state level. In addition, they control 80% of the market here in New England. They've created a monopoly over the steel fabrication industry here in New England.
Mr. Capone, thank you so much for joining us. Stephen, really do appreciate it. It's good to have a positive view of what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
And joining us now, President and co-founder of Ska Brewing, Dave Thibodeau. Dave, I know you have the counter perspective on this. You own a brewery. You rely very heavily on aluminum, which has also been tariffed 25%, the aluminum for your beer cans. Why are you not in agreement with what Stephen was just laying out?
I mean, I understand his point for sure. And I think obviously that's the ultimate goal. But for us, and I think you got to think about downstream manufacturers when you're talking about aluminum or steel. But for us, 2/3 of our revenue comes from the beer that we sell in aluminum cans. And so the trickle down, even though ultimately the long-term goal is going to be to increase American manufacturing, you know, we don't even have the smelting capacity as far as aluminum goes in the United States to meet the current demand. And so, you know, that's something Canada has been investing in for the last 100 years, where we really haven't been investing in that infrastructure. So the cost for those of us that are downstream, you know, from the actual producers, that's where we're gonna get hit and lose jobs. And, you know, it could be a bike manufacturer, it could be somebody who makes nuts and bolts. I don't know, but for us, you know, we're just going to get hit with an increase in the cost of our aluminum cans, the bulk of our revenue. We already have really slim margins. we're at about the threshold that the public can handle, I think, as far as our pricing goes. So it's difficult to raise prices. So we will have to pass it on to consumers, but I'm just concerned that we might be to the point where they might not want to pay that increase any longer.
Do you get the sense that there is an appetite from consumers to support manufacturing here, and by in doing so, support higher prices for products that are made here, including craft beer that you sell?
I do. You know, I think people do want to support American industry, and I think whether it's a steel or an aluminum producer or a craft brewer like myself, I think Americans generally do want to support that. And I understand that. The problem is the amount of time. You know, we can't sustain. I think the consumer is willing to pay a little bit more, but with all the hits as an industry that craft beer has taken pretty much since the pandemic, our margins, especially for a brewery like us, where we sell a lot of beer wholesale around the rest of the state and neighboring states, and we even export some beer to other countries. Those margins are so slim. And if we don't, I think we're at the threshold that the consumer is willing to pay. So raising prices is kind of out of the question. So really what it's going to come down to is who can hang in there and bridge this gap. And I think obviously it's a negotiation and everything is really fluid right now. So you hope at the end of the day, these don't last for that long.
How do you plan? How do you plan? I know that, the busy season is obviously summer, but you're going to start manufacturing earlier than that. How do you plan when you're not quite sure what the tariff is going to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. For us, I mean, what I would like to do normally, when faced with a situation like this, we would buy in bulk or try to buy more inventory, before those tariffs or the price increase that might come along with them actually trickles down to us. The problem, especially in Colorado, where we're incredibly seasonal, is we're coming out of our slow season where cash is tight. So we keep inventory lean, and we don't really have the capability to be purchasing in bulk or purchasing extra anything, while we wait.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Dave Thibodeau, good luck out there. And tell me what your company is called, what your brewery is called.
It's Ska Brewing Company.
Ska Brewing Company in Colorado. Thank you very much.